Hello and welcome to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for the final of our 4 Divisional Round game previews. And this time we are previewing the Los Angeles Rams trip to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis. With me, I've got 2 returning guests. Our first guest is a Rams fan, is our designated Rams fan. Back with us today is Hurdle the Line, Sam Andrews. Sam, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, just and looking forward to the game. Actually, I think coming off that win, I was very happy. But now it's on to the next row.
Exactly, and it makes a huge difference. A huge change from for you from what was 18 months ago when you came on to preview last season, and you were saying you'd only win 5-6 games. You've always gone full circle now. Now it's a lot more happening for the Rams. So yeah, exciting times. And our other guest, he was on a course just a week or 2 ago with us today. Back with us is our Eagles fan, Cam McFarlane. Cam, how are you?
Not bad at all, mate. Not bad. It's just saying to you before we got going, it's nice to be back on because it means we're still in at this point and we're still in with a fighting chance, which is what we always want at this stage of the season. And yeah, as Sam mentioned, just looking forward to another game and just the excitement of the perfect time as well. 8 p.m. Sunday for us in the UK is just absolutely ideal as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather 6 p.m. and get both games out of the way, earlier, but not have to either stay up late or have to watch it before work the next morning. I think I would probably choose that if I had to, but otherwise, yeah, it's still a great chance. I think we have the 2 games on the Saturday, and I think but I do think the Sunday games are the ones to get really excited about. You think about the Bills-Ravens game later on that night. And then this game, I think these are the 2 best games. And this game, certainly, Rams-Eagles is one to really be excited about. I think you've got so much to be excited about. Both teams have got exceptional defensive players. You think about the 2 rookie safety defensive backs in Philadelphia. You think about that defensive line for the Rams, the young players you got there. You think about Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, Kieran Williams, Saquon Barkley, Matt Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, Sean McVay. It's almost like watching the Avengers, kind of thing. Like all the stars are playing in this game. I think that whole day in total. You think about Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Derrick Henry. I think this is a day if you got a friend who if you listen to this podcast and you've got a friend or member of your family who's not into the NFL, this is a day to get them into it because Divisional Round is always the best weekend anyway, and had some great games over the years in this kind of stage of the season. You got pretty much majority of the best players in the NFL still in the playoffs playing this weekend on that day. So yeah, this game for me is very exciting. I think that we'll go on to predictions later on, but I think this could be another shootout. I really do. Like spoiler alert, if you haven't heard our Ravens Bills preview yet, it was our first of the 4. We did sort of have a general feeling that it was going to be, a game which was high scoring, and I do feel that this will be. I think while probably better defense will be on display than maybe Bills Ravens, I do think that equally you'll get some amazing sort of. If I'm honest as well, I think I'd much rather see a tight 31-28 game than maybe a 45-42, because I think you don't really get to see like a defensive performance. You just see 2 defenses can't contain each other. But I think when you get like a mid-20 sort of game, I think this game could be that sort of region, 25-30 points each. That exciting offense as well as that exciting sort of defensive play. So for me, this game is so exciting, and I can't wait for it to begin. And first of all, for you, Cam, I mean, as an Eagles fan, you are the home team in this game. How are you feeling ahead of the game? How are the nerves?
Yeah, I touched on this with you the other day when we were sort of arranging this. I didn't know whether to sit here and be just blindly confident and just put faith in the team, or actually be honest and say, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about this one. I think I've got a little bit more confidence since I spoke to you, but it's a really good game. The weather's going to be there as well for this. I think we are getting to maybe a little snow game as well on Sunday, which will be fun for the Rams having to come out of their dome in California to rock up in the cold and the snow at Lincoln Financial Field. I think it probably gives us a little bit of an advantage if that is the case, and especially that if it does become a run first sort of game, then we all saw what Saquon did against them first time round when we played them earlier this season, when he ran for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think we had 340 yards total rushing for the team. If it becomes that sort of game, I fancy us more and more. So I've got a little bit more confident than I was when I spoke to you a couple of days ago.
Well, Sam, for you, I mean, I think I was probably one of the only very few that had, well, the Eagles losing, but also the Rams winning. I think there was quite a big consensus that the Vikings would win with their record and sort of having, 4 more wins than the Rams. And, in the end, the Rams completely, I think, dominated in every aspect of the Minnesota Vikings, whether it's, they dealt with perfectly the Brian Flores blitz package. That is a tongue twister I need to use more. You think about how well they dealt with that sort of blitz package he has. You think about how he was able to sort of stop any sort of threat from Sam Darnold. I mean, Darnold had no time of day at all in this game. I mean, the defense for the Rams really just didn't give Darnold a breath, really. And I think there was and off their record 9 sacks in the game. So, that was a bit more of a shock to people than maybe the Eagles winning. But for you, Sam, first of all, how are you feeling ahead of this game? But just how impressed were you with the performance against the Vikings just a week ago?
I was majorly impressed. I mean, I said pretty much going into this game that this game will be won and lost depending on if we can control Sam Darnold and we can get to him. And that's exactly what happened. I think if the Vikings O-line had managed to stop us a bit more, I think it would have given Darnold a bit more time when he would have been open. Because you saw the time when he was open, when he had a bit more time, he was able to hit receivers. I think he hit Addison quite a few times and hit JJ a couple of times. But I think once we got in those first few hits, he was rattled. And it was like the old Sam Darnold where he was just, even when he had the time, he just looked absolutely rattled. And I just think that, if you want any quarterback going in to face, what is it? Something, I think pretty much they're the highest team to blitz in the league, aren't they? That defense. If you want any quarterback to step up and deal with something like that, it's someone like a Matt Stafford. He's just so good at reading defenses and understanding when the blitz is coming and knowing what to do when the blitz comes, that it allowed him to basically be able to play his game. And I just think that's where it was. It was just won and lost in the trenches. And I think that's probably one of the main parts. I think going into this Eagles game, it'll be who wins in the trenches, especially on that, I'd say arguably one of the best D-lines going out of this season. One of the best O-lines in this league at the moment. So it's just going to be, for me, that's where the game's won and lost. And to be honest, I thought we would maybe be one and done. If we can maybe, like I say, if we can get past and rattle Sam Darnold, we'll get one more game. But I'm going into this game probably a lot calmer than what Cam is, just because for me, we've done what I expected us to do at the very least, and I don't see us as being, as a team, as ready to be competitive as the Eagles are at this moment. I think the Eagles are a better team overall. I think they've got more at the moment to challenge the Lions, especially, and then challenge whoever they reach if they get to the Super Bowl. So, we'll cause problems, and as long as if we can stop Saquon doing what he loves to do, then we maybe stand a chance. But then you stop Saquon, you've got to deal with Hurts running. So it's always going to be difficult. But yeah, I think it'll be a fun game, I think, more than anything.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned there stopping Saquon. I mean, it's, you are, you have the 11th worst run defense in the league. And I think that on the flip side as well, you think about the Eagles, they've got the number 1 pass defense in the league and they're in top 10 when it comes to run defense. So you've got a big task on your hands. But, I think one thing that I think gives you a little bit of an advantage, and I realize that it's happened in the past and things change and all that, but there's only 3 active quarterbacks who've won a Super Bowl. And, one of them is Aaron Rodgers, is not in the playoff. The other 2 are Mahomes and Stafford. And Stafford right now is, they've got it done. And McVay has since he was hired in 2017, the second most playoff wins in history behind Andy Reid in that period. Amazing, actually. He's never actually played a same team twice in the playoffs, which is amazing. Everyone he's played has been a different opponent, Sean McVay. But do you think that, first of all, I think you've got the fact you've done something which Allen's not done, Lamar Jackson's not done, not made the Super Bowl, and Joe Burrow and Hurts have made Super Bowls but not won it. So I think Stafford, he's an old head, but he's got that experience. I think, do you think that with the coaching of McVay, and for me personally, he is, I think, second or third best coach in the league. I think with Sirianni, who does get questioned at the time by Eagles fans majority, do you think, Sam, that sort of experience of Stafford's done it in many times now, he's won a Super Bowl. McVay is, I think, light years clear of Sirianni, up against Hurts, who has had, made one Super Bowl, had a great performance that year, but apart from that, he's not done much in the playoffs. Do you think that might be a little bit of an advantage? That first of all, you've gone out really and technically been on the road. If you count the last week, Arizona, you weren't in your home stadium. You're going on the road again up against obviously a much more of a fierce atmosphere in Philly. Do you think that experience of having the sort of the brain of McVay, the head of Stafford, do you think that could give you some sort of advantage, that experience over the maybe that obviously got a lot of young players for the Eagles as well as the Rams, but do you think that could be something that falls in your favour a little bit on Sunday?
I think having the likes of Stafford and McVay going into this game, having already played the Eagles this year, is a big thing to have, because we've seen where the Eagles are at their strongest, and we've seen where there are potential areas which we can benefit from. I agree. I mean, I think that McVay is arguably he's a top 3 coach in the league. I think the one thing I've said throughout this year, and it's the one thing that always, just from a neutral perspective, when I'm not watching the Rams and when watching the Eagles, is my concern whenever I watch the Eagles is the only way that I think sometimes the Eagles can lose is if Sirianni shoots himself in the foot, and I think he can do that from time to time. And I think that can be maybe if I'm playing the luck of the draw, then maybe we might get a Sirianni special where he gives us a bit of help. But I think it's sort of a feather in the cap, but I don't think it's going to make. I don't know if it will make too much of a difference or not, because if the Eagles play the way the Eagles play, they can be almost unstoppable, and doesn't matter how good your coach is, doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. But if a team with all the right pieces plays the way that you expect them to play, we've already seen it throughout the season. They can be unstoppable. It's just whether they get in their own way, and whether maybe someone like it's useful if a team like the Eagles aren't on their game, then having someone like a McVay and a Stafford is really helpful to, I suppose, exploit that. But I still don't see it as being too much of an advantage when you think that we're at Lincoln Field. That's a terrifying place for most teams to go anyway. So to have that atmosphere. The only thing I would say is that we, even in our own ground, are used to being the underdogs in our own ground. The amount of times you watch us at SoFi and it's still Matt Stafford doing the hard count and that. So I don't see it being a problem with that. It's more just, like I say, it's a young team. This is their, for a lot, especially for a lot of the defensive players, this is their it's only their second playoff game. So that always plays a part. And I think you maybe see that throughout the year, where players getting into their first thing, some can crumble under pressure, some don't. But yeah, it'll be I just think it's such an interesting game. And I think that, I do think that the teams that aren't, the 2 games that, like we said, aren't the number 1 seed games, I think are the most interesting in terms of could go either way, more than the other 2, I think. But yeah, I can't. I mean, I personally, I like the Eagles team. I like the way that it's set up. So it's hard for me to say we're definitely going to beat them, because they are good, and I like watching them play. So, but yeah, I'm hoping for a Sirianni special as I sort of see it, but we'll see.
Well, just before this podcast was recorded, I did finish a piece on the Rams of McVay, so it will be out in the next day or two. So keep an eye out on the touchdown.co.uk for my thoughts on McVay and the Rams going into this game. And of course, if you are those of you who were big fans of DraftKings and are missing it, do head over to fantasygameday.app and use code Andy5 for money back off your first lineup. Cam, now you mentioned advantages. Now, one thing I think could be in your favour is the defensive line. I remember one of my lasting images from that game against the Packers was there was a play, probably was more than one occasion, but then there was one play in particular. I think it was a touchdown throw to AJ Brown, where the amount of time Hurts had in that pocket was just something that, as a Dolphins fan who's never ever seen a good offensive line, can only dream of. And I'm sure Stu will say the same thing. And that's something that's been a theme for the last few years. It's allowed, that's been a big part of why the brotherly shove's been successful. Probably been a big part of why Saquon Barkley's been allowed to flourish this year. Other players in the past who maybe wouldn't do well on other teams, like Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, had his moments in games at times for the Eagles. Do you think that's almost you talk about AJ Brown, the secondary, you think about Saquon Barkley, all these things we talk about with the Eagles, but do you think that could be almost the biggest thing that wins you this game, or could win you the game, the fact that your O-line is just so incredibly good?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for us, especially if it does become one of those sort of bad weather games, which I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as sort of what we've seen in the past, where I think we played Detroit in 2013 and it was just snow everywhere, and like Sean McVay just dancing through the snow and running for a ridiculous amount of yards. I don't think it's going to be that quiet of a game, but if it's cold and it's wet and it's difficult and you've got to run, then that O-line is huge. And like you say, you look at the brotherly shove, tush push, whatever you want to call it. Like, we've had changes on that O-line this year, and obviously Jurgens coming in for Kelsey at centre, Landon Dixon on the line, you got Mekhi Becton on the line, and then you've got Mylarton and Lane Johnson out wide. Like, we haven't missed a beat even with changing players in there, and it just shows how good the coaching is on that O-line and the level of players that we've invested into to get to that level. And you can talk about trying to stop Saquon or stop anyone else. The problem is that it's very difficult to stop them if you've got a line as good as ours, when you've got Jurgens snapping the ball and he's already out on the left-hand side of the field, blocking downfield already before you've even thought about it. And it is very much that when it comes down to it, matters. Yeah, the play that you were on about as well, it was the Dotson touchdown right at the start, where Hurts literally, he could have stood there until tomorrow night, and he still wouldn't have got hit. He had that long to throw it. And when you've got quality players out there, like Dotson's not really done much this year. He's been a bit disappointing, to be honest, after coming over from the Commanders. But you've still got Devontae Smith, you've got AJ Brown, you've got Saquon Howard, Kenneth Gainwell out the backfield. You've got Dallas Goedert, who can just get it in his hands and just run over people, as we saw on Sunday night against the Packers, with 3 stiff arms on his way to a 24-yard touchdown, just bullying people. One of those is going to get open if he's got time. And Jalen, I think, when you look at it, and we're talking about obviously experience of Stafford being there and winning a Super Bowl, Jalen just doesn't really let anything faze him. And we've had games at the start of this year where we didn't score a point in the first 25 minutes of gameplay, and we're behind in games, and he just doesn't get phased. Nothing bothers him. He's just good at keeping the main thing, and just when those opportunity comes, he takes them. And like you say, against this Rams side, which is a very good side, and that's why I am worried, because they can put points up. They're very good on defense. The line's great. So young players in there that have made a big difference for them, the same as on our back end when you look at obviously DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell that have really made a difference to us. You've got the same on the line as well that's made a big difference. And they're a team that I worry about, because on the day they are really, really good. But I just think if it comes down to it and when it really matters, Jalen's 2-0 against this team. And I just don't think anything really phases him. And other people it might. And talk about a Sirianni special, absolute nonsense. I'm having none of it. Like, yes, he leaves points there out there sometimes, but it might become one of them games where you aren't kicking it because the conditions don't suit it. And if anyone wants to go on fourth, if both teams are going on fourth, I back us all day long, I'll be honest. So, yeah, I think this whole Sirianni thing gets a bit blown out of proportion. He's been on the hot seat for the last 2 years, despite having the second best record in the NFL in that time and one of the best records starting out in the league that there's ever been. But all that noise comes from outside of sort of Philly. And, yeah, you'll get boos if we start off badly, but that's just what we do. And I think the team are really good at just taking that in the stride and going, yeah, well, we probably deserve to get booed because we started crap, and it's just what happens in Philly. And you just have to deal with it. You don't take it to heart, and you come out there and put a performance on. And yeah, the more we get there, I think I'm just getting a little bit more confident now. But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be nervy as hell at 7:59 on Sunday night.
I mean, yeah, the Sirianni thing. I remember I was talk about outside noise. I can't remember which London game it was. I remember it was your game against the Browns where there was a lot of Eagles fans I was with, friends of the show, Steve McGuinness and Gareth from the Franchise Tag podcast, both huge Eagles fans, and they were just constantly moaning about Sirianni. And there was a point where it wasn't good. I think that was the game where he had a go to fans. He shouted at the fans in the stadium, and I think ever since that point, the Eagles just seem to have just I think they've gradually throughout the season got better each week, but I think they've just that sort of moment there. Ever since that moment happened, it seems to have really almost galvanized the team. I don't know how true that is in the locker room, but this team's getting better each week, and I think there's definitely been a lot of concerns about Sirianni. I think there is even because after the way he lost the Super Bowl and what was a great game, I think that could have gone either way. But I do feel like it's a thing of I get the same thing with other situations. I can't think what managers there are now, but it's a thing of if you go and sack your manager or whichever sport there is, unless you got somebody who knows can be better, then stick with what you got. Because if they were to get rid of Sirianni, who would they get to come in? Because I would have said Mike Vrabel, but he's not gone to the Patriots. I think he'd have been a great candidate for anyone. But apart from that, I mean, all the good coaches are with their teams for a reason. There's a reason why these coaches aren't with their teams anymore. So I think you get rid of Sirianni, and of course, it's not as easy as in football just to come in overnight and just change things. It's a whole different scheme, different routes, different sort of packages and all that. So I think for that, I think that if you got no one you're convinced is better than him, then stick with who you got. And I think, yeah, as you said, Cam, you can't argue with the record. I mean,
if he was at anyone else, you'd be looking at him and going, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's one of the best coaches there's ever been. He's gone to the Super Bowl already. He's made the playoffs every year. But because he's in Philly and because he's a bit of a chippy character and he rubs people up the wrong way, everyone gets all excited and goes, he's on the hot seat. People don't like him. That's perfect for us in Philly because nobody likes us and we don't care.
I think probably the one thing is it's more, I think probably for this season as well, and maybe for, for teams that, Sirianni has probably every single weapon he could ever wish for at the moment. You can't, I think for me, as an overall team, apart from maybe on par with maybe someone like the Lions might be up there as well, there's not a team out there, in my opinion, that has the perfect setup at the moment. You've got the best O-line one of the best O-lines in the league. You've got I would arguably say 2 wide receiver ones. You've got a tight end who I'll always argue is at least a top 10 wide receiver, if not a top sort of 5 receiver on his day. And you've got a Jalen Hurts who is a dual threat, and you've got the best running back in the league. You've got everything that you would ever wish for. And I think when you're not performing to the level which probably the fans yourselves probably expect, when you start hearing those boos, you're automatically the outsider going to think this has to be on Sirianni. And I do think that's probably where it comes from, is the fact that everyone knows this team is fully capable of putting up 30 points every single week minimum. And when they don't, the only thing that because of the players that you've got, the immediate thought is, well, it's got to be Sirianni. And I do think that then where people then look for those things. So obviously, I was thinking more of was it week 2 or week 3, maybe a bit later against the Saints, where I think the game was at halftime, it was like 3-3 or something. It was a really, really, really bad game. And at the time, I mean, to be fair, the Saints defense at that point was fully fit and was half decent. I just think there were too many mistakes at that point that people then start looking for them. And then when they happen later on in the season, people start picking on it. And I think that's where my thing comes from about being Sirianni, especially, is that if things start going wrong, I think he can be quite hot-headed and start trying to force it. And that's where the problems can then exacerbate. Whereas I think if he just sits there and lets the team do its thing, which we all know they can, there's never going to be a problem because that team will always put points on another team. Doesn't matter whether it's the Chiefs, whether it's the Lions, whether it's the Rams, they are going to put points up. And whenever you go into a game against the Eagles, for me, it's can we outscore the Eagles, not necessarily can we stop the Eagles. So that for me is where it's the big part.
Which is tough when we've got the number one defense in the league as well to try and score on.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some quick fire sort of questions before our score prediction. So first of all, for you, Sam, I'll ask you the same question, Cam. Sam, name me one thing that will win the Rams the game on Sunday and one thing that will lose the Rams the game on Sunday.
I think the one thing that will win us the game will be Matt Stafford. But I think the one thing that will lose us the game will be our secondary.
Okay, and Cam, same questions for you. What will win the Eagles this game and what will lose the Eagles this game?
I think the O-line wins us this game. I think we dominate in the trenches and that's where we end up winning this game and are able to control the ball, control time of possession and not give the Rams enough chance to come back at us. My worry is on defense. My worry is on defense that Nakobe Dean is out. And him and Zach Bourne have been unbelievable for the majority of this season. Zach Bourne's had an unbelievable year. And that 1-2 punch of those two together at linebacker, when you've got someone like Cup running slants and that you can attack across the middle, and obviously Higbee that can come into it as well, that having him out, despite Zach Bourne still being there, worries me a little bit because, yes, we've got people to come in and play there, and I think Burks had an awful game the other day, but he misses tackles. He isn't as good in coverage as Nakobe Dean is. And if there's a team that can attack you across the middle and do those sort of short throws and get a lot of yards out of it, it is the Rams, and that bit worries me. And that's probably my concern.
It's been our concern all season, the linebacker position. So I feel your pain with that one.
And then finally, where are you boys watching the game? Cam, first of all, Sunday night, where are you going to watch it?
I'll be watching it at home for Sunday night. I think through the playoffs, it's going to be watching it at home, and then got a day out for the Super Bowl. So yeah, just having a couple of quiet weekends, watching it at home for hopefully the next couple of weeks. Anyway, I've already given us the win there. I've already gone and watched it.
Now, of course, if you make the Super Bowl, if you don't make the Super Bowl, where have you got any plans of where you'd watch the Super Bowl? Have you got any sort of locations planned or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm going to Hickory's at Wilmslow. So load of good American food. They do tickets of bits and pieces of food included with your ticket and a pint as well. And so we've got a table of 8 of us going there and watching it. So it's going to be the one. It'll be starting off early on. I've even booked into the Premier Inn next to it as well, even though it's only about 20 minutes from home, just because I don't want to come back at 5:30, absolutely hammered and wake the missus up, basically.
That's totally fair enough. That is totally fair enough. Sam, for you, where are you watching the game on Sunday?
Yeah, the exact same. I'll be watching it at home in the comfort of my own sofa. Like I say, I don't think this is going to be, if to be honest, if this is going to be one of the games where I think that it could potentially go, I'll probably turn it off at half time anyway, if we end up going the way I think it might. But no, I'll be watching it at home and I'll be enjoying it. For a game, and no matter what, whether we, are getting battered or whether we're winning or whether we're losing, it'll still be a fun game to watch. And to be honest, Super Bowl, because I'll probably be just watching that at home again as well. So I'll be able to enjoy it probably without my team being in it. But if we are there, it'll be nervy as hell.
Well, you've both sort of alluded to it a little bit there about who you think's going to win this game. Sam, we'll stick with you for your score prediction, please.
Score prediction. I think it'll probably be I think it'll be close for a lot of the game, but I think we'll be chasing in a lot of it. And I think that, it'll probably finish, I think, 34-27.
Okay, and Cam, heading over to you for yours.
I'm going a little bit lower scoring. I think we've I don't think we put up loads of points again, but I think we managed to keep the Rams sort of low enough. And I think 27-13 Eagles.
Interesting. Now, for me, I've got a head and heart thing there. So for me, my head's telling me, right, you've got number 1 pass defense, top 10 run defense. You've got, a better offensive line, quarterback now, but receiving calls better. The secondary's better. Everything's telling me that this Eagles team should beat the Rams. They're the highest seed for a reason. But my heart tells me that it's going to be an upset win for the Rams. Now, I'm aware that I said the Eagles would lose.
Well, I'll pick against us. I love it. I love it when you pick against us because there's nothing surer than we win now.
I think it's a McVay factor. I think McVay's got something in him. He's I just think there's whilst everything tells me the Eagles should win this game. They're the better team in every aspect, but we've not had really a massive proper shock yet this season. So I just think that this could be the one that could be on shock alert, and I do feel like I just think the Rams are going to win this game, and I think it's going to be 28-24, and I can see there being maybe even like an infamous moment, like a Minneapolis Miracle. Maybe not that kind of play, but maybe like a late touchdown, maybe getting both feet in the end zone. It's like a little going to the replay. Is it inbounds? Is it not? And I can see maybe someone like either Puka Nakua or Cut rolling back the years and and getting it done. And I just have this feeling in my head. I've got a lot of things wrong this year. I said the Packers would reach a Super Bowl. I said all of it stuff and said Dolphins would win the AFC East. I've had some bad predictions, but I just have this hunch, like I did with the Packers. So fair enough, might not work out, but I have this feeling it's going to be the Rams game to win. But that is where we will end the podcast for today. So once again, huge thank you to both Cam and Sam for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. And hopefully we'll be able to get that upset.
Hopefully see you next week, previewing the week after.
I think I said you guys will lose literally the last 2 or 3 games. So I'll keep the against Eagles predictions going, Cam.
I'm happy with that. As you've been nicknamed in our NFL group, the Angel of Death, you've been called for your predictions. So I'm quite happy with your prediction against us.
Yeah, that group chat. I have been known as being the ultimate curse on NFL teams. So expect all my 4 predictions of all these games and all the episodes to be completely wrong. But this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast. As ever, your host, myself, Andy Davis, with Cam and Sam for our Rams against Eagles preview. And we'll see you guys to review the Divisional Round. Take care.